did the Steelers admit they made a mistake drafting Najee by not picking up his fifth-year option? Look at the fifth-year options we haven't picked up.
Boy, Edmonds, Jarvis,
D. Bush,
Artie.
Yep.
Ooh.
None of those stayed with the team. Now Edmonds came back for 1 year.
He can't.
Afterwards,
but it was for less than what the option would have been.
Yeah,
though.
It was for.
It was like a
minimum.
Yeah, it was like $1.3. Yeah,
something.
tops. Yeah.
Right. I think the message being sent in all those scenarios were the Steelers saying, "We view you as expendable."
Yeah, we think you're a role player, not a guy.
And like, we're willing to move off of you.
Yeah. And low key, they did in all those scenarios.
Yeah.
But then let's see who they pick up: Bud, TJ, Mink.
Kenny got traded.
Yeah. Because, yeah, nobody's option got picked up when I was here. When I left, that's when they picked up Bud's.
Looks like we need to do a better job drafting first round picks.
Because they paid Pouncey ahead of time.
Honestly.
Yeah, they paid Pouncey, so they would never really got to that.
Yeah.
Man. Shea got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Shea. He got hurt, though. Yeah.
Like he's in that class of people, right?
It's like, yeah. Wow, I guess when you put it like that.
And I don't think that's all on Najee. I think that's
not. Yeah.
Part of that is the running back position, the running back market. Another part of it is Jaylen Warren being here.
Yeah.
And I guess, I think
but
some of it is on Najee.
Can we make a case, though, that all of those names that we named, that Najee has been more productive than all of them? Though?
I agree. But
Najee
I think that goes back to the running back position.
Yeah.
And just how it's viewed. Because
he's definitely, like, I don't view him as a bust or as underperforming or as letting us down.
It's just drafting a running back in the first round.
Right. I think that's where we are. That's where we're at right now. I think this is when we did that a couple of years ago and we said, yeah, man, you love it in the moment. It is what it is. We're going to run until the wheels fall off. And when it's time to pay him, we got to let him go. We just get into that part of the equation now. And it's like we trying to, like, kind of talk ourselves out of what we already knew what it was when we drafted him a couple years ago.
I think it's actually very comparable to Terrell Edmonds. Very much so. Just the offensive version of it. Yeah. Because Terrell Edmonds drafting a safety in the first round.
Talk your talk. And not a free safety. Not a free safety. A strong safety, a box safety, a tackling safety, not a get pick safety.
Right, and Terrell Edmonds, like Najee, very productive. I don't view Terrell Edmonds as a bust. But now it just comes down to value. And what you're getting out of that player per the position. And it's like, man, I don't think it's worth it to pick up Edmonds' option. I don't know what it would have been at the time. Right. Maybe probably around the same thing, like $7 million.
And the argument for Edmonds was durability.
And obviously it wasn't, because Edmonds came back on that fifth year for a 1-year deal at like $2 million. And then you see all these safeties this offseason just sitting out there going to teams for very, very team-friendly deals. Like these are big-name safeties. Justin Simmons is still chilling out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the safety position is very similar to what it's like on offense with the running back and just the market.
Because think about it for Edmonds. He didn't miss games. He was constantly 100-plus tackle dude or in that ballpark. Mm-hmm. And we was like, yo, that's the guy that you always could depend on. You knew what he was good at and what he was bad at, and it never surprised you. And it's like with Najee, you know what he's going to excel at and what he's going to struggle at, and we're hardly ever surprised by him. But with that being the case, is that something that you pay? So, dang, it's legitimate, though. That's definitely legitimate.
Especially with Najee or Jaylen being here.
Yeah.
Now, with Edmonds, I'm trying to think who we had behind him when
nobody. We brought Casey in.
Right, afterwards. But I think that was probably after the decision.
Because Sean Davis wasn't here anymore. He was in Washington, if I remember correctly. It might have been Norwood.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Norwood that first, like, that final year for Edmonds.
Norwood.
Yeah. Because remember, Norwood was, like, later in the
it might have just been him and Killebrew.
Yeah.
We probably signed Killebrew early that
He was
offseason.
more of, like, the special teams vibe. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, he didn't even have someone that like we actually felt like could replace him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that plays in. I really do. I think it plays into our decision to decline Najee's fifth-year option.
Yeah.
Because I think if you compared Najee with Edmonds, I think
Cameron
Najee's
Kelly,
a little
shout
bit
out to
more
Rod
productive
Dolly. It
than
was Cameron
Edmonds.
Kelly. Shout
Like
out to
I
Rod
think you
Dolly.
feel Najee's impact a little bit more
Yeah.
than what Edmonds gave us.
I would
But
agree.
Edmonds didn't have a Warren behind him, a Warren
Yeah.
type of guy.
And I think it's different also because Najee plays on offense. So his, what we call an okay game is him touching the ball and still ending with 80, 90 yards. We're going to naturally default to that being a good game if we won. Edmonds can have a game where he has 10 tackles. And it's like, bro, if them was just 10 regular tackles, it don't matter if we won or not. We're going to be like, yo, he ain't do nothing this game. He was quiet. He's made some tackles. So I think that was the only difference. Like when we look at Najee, like why we naturally just feel better is because he plays at least a position where he's touching the football every time. But yeah, you could definitely make the case that the Edmonds and Najee, like, yeah, you made the case they're similar scenarios, bro.
We appreciate them both.
Yeah.
We value them, but not to the extent of picking up their fifth-year option. So, you know,
Yeah.
what does that say? I feel like that says you're expendable to us.
Yeah.
Not in like this grand
It's not a
negative
bad
way.
Yeah, it's just the value and the nature of like the business side of it.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's
Yeah.
I think it's more of an NFL landscape issue as opposed to specifically Steelers. Now, if we never drafted Najee in the first round, we're not having this conversation. I think that goes back to why I posed the question initially. It's like, did we make a mistake drafting him in the first round?
Yeah, that's legit,
We
bro.
shouldn't have done the whole draft a running back in the first round thing. Because typically when you draft dudes in the first round, you're like, these are supposed to be 2 contract, 3 contract type of guys for you.
That's the whole knock on Peyton Wilson.
That's
It
why
was
you
like,
draft guys in the first round.
Yeah, if I'm taking you here, I want to know I got you for at least 5 to 7, hopefully 5 to 10. Yeah.
Because if you draft a running back in the first and are just thinking to yourself, all right, even if we don't hit the second contract, then, you know, maybe he gave us production those first 4 years or whatever. I feel like that's a waste, man.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a waste. You should have just drafted a running back in the second round if you want to go about that approach. Second or third round even.
And people are going to also knock just the production part of it because we say 3 years, 1,000-yard rusher. People that say a 17-game season, that's not as impressive. That's the other part. They say, oh, man, you ain't averaging, you know, a couple of years, wasn't averaging over 4 yards per tote. They're like, yo, that's not impressive. So going back to even what you said, it's just like, it's some days where it's, yeah, people going to pick apart committing dollars to him, or even, like you said, the decision to even draft him in the first because of even the style of player that he was. And now this is kind of like, all right, we looking back on it and saying, hey, you saw the style even before we took him. This is what you knew it could be. Now that we've seen it, this is still what it is. It has not been a Derrick Henry. So you kind of got to just take it for what it is. But like I said, we got the feelings in it, man. He nice, though, for what we asked him to do.
Yeah, and if you were to have just like drafted a dude in the third round or took the approach of like, all right, we're not drafting a running back first round, but we're going to draft a guy in the third or the fourth or, you know, wherever. Like, again, it's no guarantee they're an upgrade over Najee, but you bring in a bunch of guys because there's also really good running backs. How many times each offseason sitting there in free agency? Like Leonard Fournette signed with the Buccaneers, I think, in Brady's first year for like $3 million.
Super cheap, bro.
And went on a crazy run in the playoffs. They were calling him Playoff Lenny. Yeah. You look at, I mean, there's that chart out there that we see all the time of like the last 10 running backs for Super Bowl teams and what they're getting paid. It's not much, but you're having
regular checks.
You're having decent impact from these guys. And these are like 7th round picks, guys that you're picking up off the scrap heap in free agency for cheap. It's like if you got good structure around them, running back should succeed. So it's not a guarantee you get a good running back in the third or fourth. It's just you have a much better chance of getting a good guy wherever in the draft or even through free agency versus pretty much any other position. Yeah. So you might have to go through a struggle process, but it typically is not a long process, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate for the running backs.
In the words of Young Thug, business is business. Shout out to business being business, man. If y'all digging the convo, man, hit that like button one time for the culture. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe.